Hey everyone, welcome to the Pathfinders podcast with our expert Becky Lee and myself. We're going to discuss the second principle of the Hermetic philosophy, the law of correspondence. And I believe this is super prevalent and one of your favorites, Becky.
It is, and I find the law of correspondence is truly one of the most, they're all important laws, principles, but this is one of the most important if anybody really wants to grasp how to work with energy and how to work with their body. It, as above, so below, as within, so without. That law of correspondence pretty much it tells us what we work on within, what we think about, what we feel, what we put out there creates a resonance that draws that same energy back to us. So, what's showing up on the outside in our world is a direct reflection of whether it's turmoil going on within us or something amazing going on within us. And it's a great stepping stone, it's a great pointer to go within, in every situation, even the most difficult ones. And I know sometimes that's really hard to grasp and come home to yourself and be like, what's going on? What is this trying to teach me right now?
Yeah. So can we go back a step? Because I had a conversation with somebody else this morning that was really about the mind versus the soul in a way. That wasn't the language we used, but I really get that it's so easy to be distracted by the mind. It's so busy, and we are taught so much about the mind and how it works. But we're really told that experience of the heart, that experience of the soul, and I really feel like this is deeply powerful. So when you get this awakening into the soul, and this awakening into exactly what you were talking about, we are shifting from the mind to the heart. We're shifting from the mind to the soul. And so what is your take on that as a way to really experience what is corresponding, like what's going on for us?
Well, getting to know your own energy body is so important because you know, I know for myself personally, I lived so many years of my life in a busy mind, which was programmed by fears, limiting beliefs, negative self talk, negative thoughts about others, and people don't like me, all those negative things that go on in our heads through a day to day, on day to day basis. And when I learned to quiet my mind through meditation, through somatic exercises, releasing trauma from my nervous system, I learned to listen to the quiet of my heart and feel it. Our heart's a great tool for, understanding what's going on around us. And when we quiet our mind, we allow the answers to come through our heart. And that's true channeling, allowing that to come down and through and out. And the beautiful thing is when we tune into our intuition, when we realize that loud voice in our head was never our guide, it was our fear, it was our ego, quote unquote ego. And ego is not a bad thing. I'm not labeling it as a bad thing, it's important. And that quiet whisper of our soul, higher self, our heart starts to speak in this loving voice. You realize that that's been trying to lead you all along. And that's, when you listen to that, that's when the miracles start happening in everyday life, where you're driving down the street and all of a sudden you hear, turn here. And you have some crazy, cool, synchronistic things happen. That's what really the law of correspondence is talking about. It's, sending out, trusting and loving. And when we trust and love ourselves, trust and love will come back to us.
Hmm. Yeah, so the thing with all of this is that we so often are taught that it's everyone else's fault. It's your fault, it's their fault, etc., etc., but not ours. Yeah. And what I really get from this law is that it's entirely ours. And it's not fault, that's probably the wrong choice of words, but it is a reflection of what's truly going on for us. And when we can really move into that space of taking responsibility, really shifting into that awakening of what's going on for us, then we start to move into a place where that level of knowledge comes to us about what's truly happening in our lives. So I would love to know what that means to you, because this is a deep exploration of the personal.
Yeah, accountability is tough sometimes, right? Taking accountability for our feelings, our emotions. And you're right, we're raised to blame the outside and be a victim because being a victim gives energy. You're taking energy off of other people. And, as kids, we hurt our knee or we fall down or somebody hurts our feelings and our parents like show us love. And, when we realize that we can show ourselves that love and take the accountability for our scraped knee, for, maybe I was being clumsy and not being mindful today. That's why I fell and scraped my knee. How can I show up differently next time? If you have a fight with somebody at work, if you have a disagreement, if somebody's breaching your boundaries and you're not speaking up for yourself, instead of blaming them for victimizing you, take the accountability, either remove yourself from that situation and show yourself that love. And this is where you start to show up as the version of you that has everything that you want. Would the CEO of your company put up with, BS from people? No, they'd be like, I don't have time for this. You go talk to somebody else that way, you're fired, kind of thing, right? And you fire that stuff out of your life and take accountability. And your life will begin to shift when you start seeing things from that perspective, pairing that love, that kindness that you want to receive, but start giving it to yourself.
Yeah. I love that you brought up this CEO because it really reflects what happens in the real world. So many people want to get more money, get more love, all of that.
Yeah.
And I think that there are so many people who make money and do so in really unfortunate ways. They are not looking at the whole. They are not, they're making money because they feel poor, like they feel desperate. They feel. So, what's the difference to you about this shift in wanting to make money because you feel rich versus wanting to make money because you feel poor? And then what happens um, in each way, right? What happens in the pendulum of outcome in this Hermetic kind of philosophy?
I love that you use the pendulum because that's like the greatest analogy of all time. It's like they're two ends of the same thing, opposite poles of the magnet kind of thing.
Mm.
But it's like it's when we come from a place of lack, which is we would need to make money because we're poor and we don't have. We're sending that energy out. And so the universe doesn't understand negative or positive. It just understands the energy you're putting out. So if you're coming from a desperate place, the universe, and you're focusing on what you don't have, and that's why you need it, all that's going to be corresponded back to you is more to lack from. You know, Speaking of money, another great way to approach this is like, I remember one of my greatest teachers. I used to be like, man, I'm resilient. I'm what did I used to say? I'm resilient. I'm a survivor. And he said, change those words. Resilience and survivor mentality give you more things to survive from and be resilient from. Start saying, I'm powerful. I am wise. And I was like, no way. It blew my mind. But same thing with money. It's like if you're lacking and you're afraid you can't pay your bills, you're going to have more surprise bills come in. I have a great example. About 2 months ago, I had this payment go into my bank account and it came out of nowhere. It was like a rather large payment. And I'm like, what is this from? And a month later, I got this letter in the mail saying it was from an old job that I worked. It was from like 2 years ago and they had an issue with their payment system. So they're reimbursing me this money I should have been paid over the time that I worked for this company. I'm like, wow. And it's because I've stepped into my abundant mindset. I I'm a money magnet. And these are the kind of things I say to myself. But I don't come from a place of wanting and needing. It's from a place that I am aligned with that energy of financial abundance. I'm aligned with the energy of all abundance. And because I give back, I serve. When we come from a place of service, we're not lacking because we give freely of our energy, our time, our knowledge, instead of I have to wait for somebody to pay me. So I give my knowledge out. So and it's like it's come, but our society wants us to think that there's not enough to go around. Like anybody who competes, stop competition. Just come into a place of knowing that you are perfect, whole, and complete.
Yeah, it's true. You are. Everyone is, and I love that. that very phrase is exactly what we use if we go to that space of what it is that we are, what it is that we love that has no opposite. You know, this is part of the pendulum. That metaphor is that there's always an opposite. But if we go to that fulcrum, you know, what would we love in this life? What would we love to be? What would we love to experience? That has no opposite. You know, and when we're in that space of really connecting to that, it's a level of freedom that comes forward that has no, you know, has no feeling, has no opposite. And I want to say that, and then I want to go back briefly um, to just have a look at what you talked about before, because I think this is so powerful that there is no opposite to the feeling. There is no feeling. Those feelings of lack of all of that, um, they are an element of humanity. They're an element of being human. But that is not what we truly are, you know, and that spiritual side, you know, it has no opposite. It has no need for healing. It is perfect. So what are your thoughts on that? Because I think to find that part of yourself that is perfect, it is a high place, but it is a constant challenge. Well, I say
Mhm.
that, that's not opposite true. It's a place that is without need. And if we come from that place, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, like one of the big things I learned in my journey was the way energy flows through us, like in a practical, pragmatic way. It's energy flows from source down through us, and we're meant to push it out and down through the earth. And like a constant cycle, like a plug in the wall, like a circuit, right? It's a constant flow. But when we're disconnected, we feel this need for things. Like we disconnect from source or we're ungrounded and so we start pulling off of physical beings around us, like the physicality. It's when you have a need, for constant approval, a need for somebody to be there because you're afraid to be alone, a need for codependence, a need for anything. We're pulling off of those around us. And if you think about it, you're filtering that energy through your chakra system, not to get into the chakra side of things, but what happens when you filter somebody else's energy through you? You're keeping parts of it within you. So you're filtering their energy and you're not flowing as a complete circuit now. So if you just like come back to yourself and you're like, okay, why am I feeling needy right now? This is one thing I started asking myself. Why do I feel like I need that person's approval? Why do I feel like I'm not good enough? Why do I feel like I'm being disempowered? And I would sit with those feelings and I would just be really introspective. And the answers would come to me like magically, maybe a day later, maybe instantly. And I'd be like, wow, I just healed a part of myself. It'd take me to a flashback of being a kid and somebody not picking me on a team in school, just wanting to be a part of the crowd. And I'm like, no, that's not me anymore. I know I am perfect, whole, and complete, and not in an egotistical way because I'm not perfect, but my soul is. There's a part of me that is, my essence is. No being on this earth is made, in error, in any kind of negative light. It's the world around us that shapes us that, it's a beautiful thing. And when we come back to that pure love of being, we start to put the fragments of our soul back together and bring it back into our body.
Yeah, the that's a great example of being at school because there is so much that happens when we're young that is just not true, right? We land all of these conclusions about who we are and what that means that they did and all of that, and that takes us into really into that space of not remembering, of not knowing that truth, you know, so that we can experience, like you say, it is all perfect. And we get to experience that and go, oh, look at this, you know, there it is. And we get to let it go. And get to keep letting that go until we're really, I think, floating in this whole different space. So, so this is good because what this does now is it takes us into that. If we move into that space where we are a spirit and we are perfect, what does it show us in terms of this law of correspondence and this plane of correspondence? What does it show us in terms of what's really happening in the world and really happening in our world?
Well, it shows that the spirit world is it's reflecting within us, and we are filtering through our perception what we want and we see outside of us. You know, we can bring anything into physical manifestation from the spirit world. However, we have to be a match to that, a vibrational match to bring that in. So if things are showing up that are causing discontentment, causing, unhealthy feelings, well, not unhealthy feelings, not happy feelings, I'll say, um, that just shows us we need to go in a little more. That just shows us that there's some kind of battle going on within us that's not quite corresponding with that lifeline, with that timeline that we're wanting to get to. And it's so important just to be able to grab your thoughts, grab a hold of you know, your logical mind, and understand that what's you're hearing in your logical mind isn't always true. Our brain and our nervous system is programmed to protect us. And that's something that I tell myself all the time. If I feel anxious or if I feel like something is not right, and I take that thought that's like, oh, they don't like me, this is happening, somebody's out to get me. And I'm like, no, they're not. And I open my heart more instead of closing it off, because our logical mind wants us to like go into fight or flight, because that's how our bodies have lived for thousands of years through, our past into now. And now we're in this realm where I'm not being chased by a bear through the forest. Like, nobody's trying to physically kill me right now. I am safe in my body. And I start to, like, this, I've had to do this. I used to have such bad functional anxiety where I'd just be like I'd be frozen, and I still have moments that come up and I'm like, hey, nobody's holding a knife to my throat right now. Why is my physiology doing this? And once you ask that and you bring the awareness to it, you can slowly start to unravel that tightness in your being and listen in again.
Yeah, I love that because, in the shamanic training that I did, which was the training itself was 10 years, and then and part of that training at one point was really facing death. We had these beautiful experiments or experiences where we got to face death. We dug our own grave. We spent, a night in it, all sorts, right? Um, and when we're in that space, when we're truly acknowledging the gifts of that, you start to go, okay, well, I don't care if a bear turns up. Like, I don't care if I'm whatever it is that you're, whatever it is that you're in fear of, because that the truth is that you are not a human, you are a spiritual being. And whatever that means for whatever's going on here, the other side of death is just the same. In fact, it's easier if you look at that life between lives kind of stuff that I do as well. It's that level of okay. There's much more to have available to us than what's here. So what I come to in all of this is to really look at what it is that you would love in this space. Because if you think about the plane of correspondence, life is going to unfold naturally in your expectation, right? And so, what are your thoughts on shifting from that, exactly what you were just talking about, the bear, all of that, to this beautiful place where we just work with what we would love and that feeling of giving.
Yeah, like I found for me a good way to shift, especially when I was at the beginning of this journey of reclaiming my nervous system and my mind, was just telling myself I'm safe and almost like physically hugging myself or laying down, just allowing myself to rest. Because a lot of the time when we get in that parasympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight that's telling us there's danger, and our mind goes all over the place, we we go down a rabbit hole and we get really tight and we get really busy, or we freeze or we fight. It's like all these different responses that people get. And it's so important, as soon as you bring awareness to it, ask yourself, why do I feel this way? And then think of the emotion, and then what would be like the opposite of that emotion? Well, an indifference would be a good opposite, or do something that makes you happy in that moment. And at the beginning, it may be forceful to do it, but put on a song you love, go for a walk outside. I used to actually go stand out barefoot on my grass when I was in a really bad headspace, and just bring myself into the present moment, or try to meditate. Meditate it away sometimes was a good way to do it, but just bringing yourself back into the present and working through the emotions and telling yourself, this isn't real. This is my mind. This is my mind trying to protect me, but I don't need this anymore.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. And my version of that is way less personal in a way, in that I really just look for where's the tension in my body, because regardless of what it is, you're going to tense up. It's part of the nature of how you feel emotions is your body tenses. And so if you can just get into the space, especially meditating, of just letting everything go and the tension let go, and the anything like that, you don't need to necessarily know why it's there. Just keep letting it go, and let go deeper and let go deeper. And especially too, if you do that at the same time as looking up, you enter into such a different space. Impossible to be depressed, impossible to be sad if you are completely relaxed and looking up. So that's my 2 cents worth.
I love that. I think that's powerful. And anybody watching this, it's going to be something that works for you. This is like, teaching spirituality. There's no one right answer for everything. Dogma's dogma for a reason. What works for you to calm you? Do I know when I used to be really bad, I'd pick up my guitar and play because music is healing to me. I would go to the gym and just go for a run on the treadmill or go lift weights just to get my body moving, because movement is healing. It removes that stuck energy and it releases, like you said, the tension in our bodies. I would go hug my child, just something to get the oxytocin going in my body, the feel good hormone. Maybe go, you don't want to do things that are self deprivating, like, eating, or, something that's an emotional crutch, but find something that's positive. Go pet your cat or dog if you have one. There's so many things that you can do. Smelling something very fragrant. So like if you have an essential oil, will bring you back into your body as well. I used to use that one a lot too.
Yeah, beautiful. And Becky and I just talked a minute before, for everyone that's watching, about really creating an experience of each of these laws of Hermetic, principles. So stick around, because it's going to get really experiential. We're not going to just talk to you about it. I really want to share what we can of the experience of it. But yeah, I would say that this has got to be one of the most beautiful, most powerful principles, because we are essentially so human, right? And then to come to this space of really being able to see how everything that we do is completely reflected in everything that we experience, and vice versa. And I really love that.
Yeah, it's powerful. And I'll tell you, like, I'll share with anybody watching this right now, in the future, whenever you watch this, even myself, I've had things show up in the last couple weeks that have been a sign for me to stand up for myself. I have always had an issue standing up for myself in ways. And like, there's no point in your journey where you don't look in the mirror. The brighter the light, the darker the shadows that come up, is what I've heard over the years and what I continue to see. So that law of correspondence, and that law, we'll get into the law of the principle of polarity and all that fun stuff too, but it's real. And when you really start to understand that, if you ask for signs, they will come to you because you're asking for them. Listen to them, follow them. If you're asking for guidance, it will come to you in the most opportune ways. If a great one too, if you're looking for guidance or some kind of sign, pick up the nearest book to you, flip a page open and read that page. And that's going to be your guidance for the day. There's so many ways to work with these principles. What works best for you, make it work for you.
Yeah, I love that. It's I mean, I'm looking at this book right now. But it's that aspect of who we truly are that's just there all the time, at every level, at every stage. And we get to turn up and look for those parts of us that extend beyond the human, and know all of this stuff. and know why we came here and know our own highest wisdom. And I think that's a huge gift.
It really is. And, the biggest gift we can have is trusting in our own wisdom, trusting in our heart, trusting in our mind, body, and soul. And that starts within. So if you find yourself distrusting people around you, look within. There's a part of yourself you're not trusting inside. If you find yourself not seeing a lot of love around you today, look within yourself. There's a part of you you're not loving enough today. So it's all comes back, and you can shift it. Take accountability today. Take the awareness, make it work for yourself.
Love it. See you next time.
See you next time.